Graham Forster, Andrew Scarborough, has warned Cain Dingle, Jeff Hordley, to stop feuding with Joe Tate, Ned Porteous, in Emmerdale and focus on his health. This comes after similar words of wisdom from Dr. Liam Kavanagh, Johnny McPherson, and granddaughter Sarah Sugden, Katie Hill. But will he listen to their advice? Cain is deeply troubled. Not only is he living with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, but wife Moira, Natalie J. Robb, has been incarcerated for double murder and human trafficking, crimes she didn't commit, and they're at serious risk of losing their homestead Butler's farm. Joe has managed to acquire 50% of the business, and is mounting the pressure on Cain to sell the other half. There's also been a potential tuberculosis outbreak that could wipe out their livestock and effectively leave the Dingles penniless. In today's episode, Commie Haddock, Sheb's Mia, spotted Joe driving a brand new motor into the village. This is the second car he's purchased in the last month, with the first of these, a DeLorean, initially stolen by Cain before Graham returned it to its rightful owner. Cain immediately clocked the vehicle and asked Commie if he wanted to help him steal it. It was a risky move, but one that would give him another thrill. Commie was enlisted to distract Joe at the pub, so that Cain could swipe his keys. The plan didn't go accordingly, as Joe soon realized what had happened and used some of the car's nifty features to track down who had stolen it. Not only did it have inbuilt GPS tracking, but also hidden internal cameras that clearly showed Cain speeding off. A war of words soon ensued, and Cain punched Joe to the ground. His fiancée Dawn Fletcher, Olivia Bromley, raced over and wanted to call the policy, though Joe took pity and told her not to. All he wanted was for Cain to hand over his side of Butler's, and their battle would be over. Word soon reached Graham of what had happened, and he called by to check in on Cain. He's one of very few villagers who knows the true extent of what's troubling him, and said the time had come for him to admit defeat. Will Cain's latest quarrel with Joe spell the end of his time at Butler's farm? The diagnosis came quietly. Clinical. Brutal. Aggressive prostate cancer. No dramatic collapse. No public breakdown. Just sterile hospital lighting, and the steady voice of Liam Kavanagh explaining treatment options. Cain had nodded. He hadn't cried. He hadn't told most of the village either. Instead, he buried it beneath anger. As if fury could outpace mortality. As if picking fights could silence fear. But the cancer was only one front in a war that seemed determined to crush him. His wife, Moira Dingle, sat behind bars for crimes she didn't commit. Double murder and human trafficking. Accusations so monstrous they barely felt real. Butler's farm, the Dingles' lifeblood, teetered on the brink of collapse. And circling like a vulture was Joe Tate. Joe's power play. Joe had already acquired 50% of Butler's. It was a strategic move, executed with his usual polished ruthlessness. Now he wanted the rest. Sell up, Cain. Admit defeat. Hand over your legacy. But Cain would rather burn the farm to the ground. The tension escalated when Joe rolled into the village in yet another new car. Sleek, gleaming, a deliberate display of wealth. Commie Haddock noticed first. Flash, isn't it? Commie grinned. Cain's jaw tightened. That wasn't just a car. It was a message. Joe was thriving while Cain drowned. And Cain refused to let that stand. The reckless plan. You fancy a bit of fun? Cain asked Commie quietly. Commie hesitated. What kind of fun? The kind that reminds him he's not untouchable. The plan was simple. Commie would distract Joe in the pub. Cain would lift the keys. It wasn't about money. It was about humiliation. But Joe Tate didn't buy flashy cars without protection. The vehicle came equipped with GPS tracking and internal cameras. Features Cain hadn't counted on. Within minutes of the theft, Joe knew exactly who had taken it. Footage showed Cain speeding off, expression set in grim determination. Joe found him soon enough. The confrontation was inevitable. A punch and a proposal. The argument erupted in the village square. You're pathetic, Joe sneered. Is this what you've come to? Cain swung first. Joe hit the ground hard. Gasps rippled through onlookers as Dawn Fletcher rushed forward. I'm calling the police, she snapped. Joe held up a hand, brushing blood from his lip. No, he said calmly. There's a simpler solution. He looked directly at Cain. Give me your half of Butler's. And this ends. It was chilling in its simplicity. Surrender the farm. Or lose everything another way. Graham's warning. Word travelled fast. By evening, Graham Forster stood in the doorway of the farmhouse kitchen. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. You need to stop. Cain poured himself a drink. Didn't know you were his spokesperson now. I'm not, Graham replied evenly. I'm yours. Graham was one of the few who knew about the cancer. one of the few who understood the cracks beneath Cain's defiance. "You're not fighting Joe," Graham continued. "You're fighting everything. And it's killing you faster." Cain's silence was brittle. "You can't keep swinging at the world," Graham said. "Not like this." "I'm not rolling over," Cain muttered. "There's a difference between strength and self-destruction." The words landed, but Cain wasn't ready to hear them. The weight of Moira. Later that night, Cain visited Moira in prison. The sterile visiting room felt colder than any hospital. "You look tired," she said gently. "Just busy." She saw through him instantly. "You've been fighting Joe again." He didn't deny it. Moira reached across the table. "You can't win everything with your fists. He wants the farm." "And what good is the farm if you're not here to see it?" she whispered. The implication hung heavy. Moira knew about the diagnosis. She also knew her husband's greatest weakness. Pride. Sarah's last word. Back in the village, Sarah Sugden waited for him outside the garage. "You promised you'd try," she said. Cain frowned. "Try what?" "Living." The word disarmed him. "You think stealing cars and punching Joe helps?" she continued. "It doesn't make you strong. It makes you reckless." "I'm handling it," he insisted. "No," she said firmly. "You're avoiding it." Sarah had already faced mortality in her own life. She recognized denial when she saw it. "I want my granddad around," she said softly. "Not some angry version who pushes everyone away." Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. "You're scared," she added. "And that's okay. But don't pretend you're invincible." Cain had no answer. Because she was right. The TB threat. As if Joe's maneuvers weren't enough, rumors of a tuberculosis outbreak began spreading among local farmers. If confirmed, livestock would need to be culled. Butler's was already financially fragile. An outbreak would finish it. Cain stood in the barn one evening, running a hand over the flank of a cow he'd raised from calfhood. This farm wasn't just land. It was history. It was family. It was identity. Selling it felt like erasing himself. But losing it through pride? That felt worse. A man at the crossroads. The next time Cain saw Joe, the tension was quieter. Deadlier. "You look rough," Joe observed coolly. "Still standing." "For now." Joe stepped closer. "You're ill. Your wife's in prison. Your farm's failing. You can't win this." Cain's jaw clenched. "Sell me your half," Joe said. "Take the money. Focus on your treatment." For a moment, just a flicker, Cain considered it. Not for Joe. For Moira. For Sarah. For whatever time he had left. But surrender tasted bitter. "I'm not done," Cain said finally. Joe's smile was thin. "We'll see." Graham's final plea. Later, Graham cornered him once more. "This feud will be the death of you," he warned. Cain laughed hollowly. "Bit late for that." "You think this is about Joe?" Graham pressed. "It's about control. You can't control the cancer. You can't control Moira's case. So you pick a fight you think you can win." The truth cut deep. "You don't have to prove anything," Graham said quietly. "Not anymore." Cain stared out over the fields. The land looked unchanged. But everything felt different. What comes next? Will Cain's latest quarrel spell the end of his time at Butler's farm? Possibly. Joe has the leverage. The law could still catch up with the car theft. The TB outbreak looms. And the cancer waits, relentless. But Cain Dingle has never been a man who surrenders easily. The real question is whether he'll learn that survival sometimes means letting go. As night falls over Emmerdale, Cain stands alone in the yard. The wind moves through the fields. The farmhouse lights glow in the distance. He looks tired. Older. For the first time, uncertainty flickers in his eyes. Not fear of Joe Tate. Not fear of prison or poverty. But fear of leaving everything unfinished. The war with Joe may cost him the farm. But refusing to fight his illness could cost him far more. And in Emmerdale, pride has destroyed stronger men than Cain Dingle. Whether he listens to Graham's warning, or continues down this reckless path, may determine not just the future of Butler's farm, but the time he has left to see it.